Now, have you ever really wondered exactly how clean the air is in your home? There are a number of elements that go into having clean and healthy air in your living spaces. Now, thanks to today's technology, you can not only monitor your home's air quality, but also improve it. So stick around as we take a look at the different types of smart home air quality sensors and how to use them to keep your home's air fresh. Hi there, and welcome to the Smart House. I'm your host, Ryan the Tech Guy. If you're passionate about making your home smarter and your environment healthier, then you're in the right place. So in today's video, we're going to dive into the world of smart home air quality sensors. We'll be exploring several key types of sensors: CO2 sensors, particulate matter, VOC, natural gas, and the ubiquitous temperature and humidity sensor. Now, this is not a conclusive list of all the sensors that are out there right now, but these are some of the most popular ones. For each type of sensor, we'll discuss why it's important, and I'll talk about specific models that I've got integrated into Home Assistant. We're going to also look at some real-world examples on how to improve your home's air quality can contribute to a healthier home environment. So let's get started. So first up, let's talk about CO2 sensors. These sensors are crucial for monitoring the levels of carbon dioxide in your indoor environment. Now, high CO2 levels can lead to health issues like headaches, dizziness, and even impaired cognitive function. Now, one quick important note, that CO2 sensors are distinct from CO, or carbon monoxide detectors, which primarily serve as a human safety device. If you are interested in integrating your smoke and CO detectors into Home Assistant, check out a previous video that I did on this. So on the subject of CO2 sensors, the first sensor we're going to take a look at is the new Aranet 4 combination air quality sensor. So big thanks goes out to Aranet for sending me this air quality sensor and sponsoring this section of today's video. They were actually the reason why I made this video. They asked if I wanted to check out their new product and gave me complete freedom to create any video that I wanted. Very fun. The Aranet 4 not only monitors CO2 levels, but also temperature and humidity, displaying everything on this easy-to-read e-ink display. Now, if you're not familiar with e-ink displays, it's similar to what you find on a Kindle. The cool thing about e-ink displays is that they require very little power. They only consume energy when the display actually changes. With that, this sensor is actually battery powered, so you can place it anywhere that's convenient. This one's been hanging out in my living room for the past few weeks, and my wife has actually taken notice of the CO2 levels. It has this built-in green, yellow, and red indicator to let you know when the CO2 levels get unhealthy. Needless to say, we now have a lot more plants in our house and our windows are open a lot more. Now, what really makes the Aranet 4 stand out is its high-precision, real-time CO2 measurements. This comes from its NDIR, or non-dispersive infrared sensor, giving it high-accuracy data. The sensor can also store 90 days of data on board that you can access via the Aranet app over Bluetooth. Now, with that app, you can set up alerting, and if your phone is within Bluetooth range of the sensor, you'll get alerted if CO2 levels or other values get too high. You can also use the built-in integrations in Homey and Home Assistant to read the data consistently from the sensor. For example, my Home Assistant instance communicates with the sensor over Bluetooth, so now I can use that data to kick off automations. Plus, the nice thing about Home Assistant is if your sensor is too far away for Bluetooth, you can always set up Bluetooth proxies, which work great with the Aranet. I'll have a video coming out about Bluetooth proxies here in a little bit. Link up above. Now, the Home Assistant integration seamlessly enhances the smart home experience by allowing you to take full advantage of all the data that the sensor can spit out. Now, of course, there are other CO2 sensors on the marketplace, but I really think the Aranet comes in a really nice looking case, and it's something that's not going to be too disruptive up on your shelf. So, having covered all the features of the Aranet 4 CO2 sensor, let's turn our attention to another source of indoor pollution: particulate matter. Now, talking about particulate matter sensors, these are essential for monitoring microscopic particles suspended in the air that you breathe. Now, there are two main types of particulate matter sensors. These differ based on the size of the airborne particles that they can detect. There's PM 2.5 and PM 10. PM 2.5 refers to particles with a diameter of 2.5 micrometers or smaller, often originating from sources like vehicle emissions, industrial processes, and wildfires. These ultrafine particles can penetrate deep into the lungs and even enter the bloodstream, posing serious health risks. On the other hand, PM10 particles have a slightly larger diameter, up to 10 micrometers. These particles typically include dust, pollen, and mold spores, which can cause respiratory irritation and exacerbate conditions like asthma and allergies. But on the other hand, PM10 particles are less likely to penetrate deeply into the lungs, but they still prevent health concerns, especially for vulnerable populations. So to monitor these type of particles, I picked up the Govee Life Smart Air Quality Sensor off of Amazon. Now, this unit is only a PM 2.5, so it can only detect those 2.5 micrometer particles, but it also measures temperature and humidity. And you're going to see that in a lot of these sensors. This does still provide you valuable insights into your indoor air quality.
I was able to easily integrate it with Home Assistant's built-in Govee Bluetooth integration.
This allows me to trigger fans or air purifiers, enhancing my smart home setup. Alternatively, if you prefer a standalone function, you can set it up with the Govee Home app where you can just read the data directly on your phone. You can also integrate it with Govee's other products like their air purification system. So moving on, let's talk about another critical aspect of indoor air quality: volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. Now, VOCs are a significant concern when it comes to indoor air quality. These compounds typically are emitted from sources such as paints, cleaning products, furniture, and even some 3D printer filaments like PLA. VOCs can range from short-term irritation to long-term respiratory issues and even potential carcinogenic effects. So monitoring VOC levels is critical for maintaining a healthy indoor environment, especially around things like paints or other off-gassing products. And fortunately, there are smart sensors available designed specifically for this purpose. That's why about 3 months ago, I picked up the Aqara VOC Sensor. This sensor also has an e-ink display, giving you long battery life, and communicates over Zigbee to Home Assistant. So I've got mine set up with Zigbee to MQTT, which then puts data directly into Home Assistant. You can also check the parts per million, temperature, and humidity right on the display. It also has a nice visual indicator of air quality by the number of leaves at the top of the screen. You can change this with a button on the top by double pressing. Now this VOC meter actually lives in my storage closet here in my office. That's where my Ender 3 S1 Pro lives. It's been interesting to see the amount of VOCs that get into the air when the printer is actually running. Now, quickly moving on, we're going to talk about another type of sensor, and I would consider this one really more of a human safety device. This is a natural gas sensor, and these sensors are essential in homes that have natural gas appliances. This is critical for detecting gas leaks, or if somebody accidentally leaves one of those appliances on. This is actually one of the sensors I really wanted to add to my smart home. A few years ago, we had an incident where somebody didn't turn off the gas stove completely. And when we came home, you could smell natural gas everywhere. Thankfully, it had only been a few minutes, but it could have turned out much differently. So investing in one of these sensors is a good idea if you happen to have gas stoves, fireplaces, dryers, water heaters, or an HVAC system that uses gas. Obviously, if you have an all-electric home, there's no need for it. It's especially good for those who may have issues with their sense of smell, because that's the primary way that we detect natural gas in a home. So a quick search turned up this Tuya natural gas detector on Amazon, and this sensor provides quick alerts, and I've got it integrated with Home Assistant via the local Tuya integration. So not only does this detector sound an alarm if it detects gas, but you can also receive alerts in the app and monitor the gas levels within Home Assistant. Now finally, maintaining the right temperature and humidity levels is vital for both comfort and health. Sensors that monitor these conditions help manage your heating and cooling systems more efficiently and can prevent the growth of mold and mildew. You can also utilize smart plugs or infrared controllers to activate dehumidifiers in high humidity environments. Now, interestingly enough, most air quality sensors already include temperature and humidity monitoring capabilities. So if you have any of these sensors, you might already have this functionality with one of those ones, or through a smart thermostat. My house is just full of temperature sensors now. But if you're looking specifically for a dedicated temperature or humidity sensor, there are two main types, those with a screen and those without. In my house, we utilize the Aqara temperature and humidity sensors, and also the SwitchBot outdoor sensor in areas where a screen isn't necessary. In addition, I have one of the YoLink outdoor sensors monitoring my deep freezer out in the garage. For more public areas, we prefer either the SwitchBot Meter Plus, the YoLink temperature sensor, and the Shelly HNT sensors. All of these devices integrate seamlessly into Home Assistant, allowing for easy inclusion in dashboards and automation setups, so you truly can see what's going on in each corner of your house. Humidity sensors are also valuable in places like basements, allowing you to detect water coming in because the humidity levels are significantly above that of the rest of your home. Now, if you've got any helpful insights out of today's video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. This helps the YouTube bots know that folks are getting good information from here and will show it to others. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more projects and product reviews. So now that we've seen all the features of these products, let's take a look at how we can use that information in our automations and Home Assistant to have better air quality in our homes. All right, so quickly, let's take a look at some example automations that we can do to improve the air quality in our house. So for this first section, let's look at the basics, which is to create notifications. And of course, don't worry about following along. I've got all of these automations listed out in the blog post that you can find down here below or in the description. So you can just copy and paste those directly into your Home Assistant instance. Now, notifications may seem overly easy, but I'll show you a couple tricks in order to be able to reuse the same automation to both trigger notifications and also do other things like turn things on and off. Let's start by clicking Create Automation, and then we'll create a blank one. Now under trigger, we're going to go to entity. And this is important because you need to be able to select numeric state for a value that's a number. So we're going to select numeric state. And for our entity, we're going to do the living room sensor, living room CO2 carbon dioxide. Now below that, we have two options. We have one for above or below mode, meaning if we have a numeric value that goes above or below a certain threshold, we want to trigger this automation. So let's start out by saying if it goes above 1500, which is the red indication on the Aranet 4, then we want to go ahead and kick off something. If we scroll down here under and if, this used to be called conditions. We're not going to have anything right now, but we'll go back and modify this as we make it more advanced. So we're going to click add action and simply we're going to do notification. Now, if you have different notification devices set up in Home Assistant, you're going to see a bunch of options here. It's not like other things like light, where you use like light turn on. Each notification has its own service to send. So I'm going to go ahead and use my mobile app integration, which is the default one when you set up the mobile app on iPhone or on your Android phones, you'll get a notification service that you can use. So this one's called the Fold 4, which will go to my Fold 4, obviously. And under message, we just want to say, and then under title, which on Android, you'll see the title at the top, we'll just call high CO2 levels. So you can set up multiple devices if you want to. So if you want to send it to your phone, your spouse's phone, your watch, whatever, you can set up multiple ones there. So obviously that's pretty easy, pretty straightforward, but let's look at a couple of more advanced topics. So say for example, we wanted to send a different notification depending on the time of the day or different criteria. So my previous example, I had said one of the options high, you gotta open a window or just circulate air. So in this case, I'm gonna send a reminder to say, go ahead and open the window. So now we're gonna say add building block, and we're gonna use the choose option here. What the choose option does is it allows you to set multiple items like a case would be in some programming languages, where it's gonna check each of them in order. And if it doesn't fulfill any of those thresholds, it's gonna go to the default action. You can set different conditions inside of one automation. So it's super powerful and I use this one all the time. So this one's gonna be fairly simple. So we're gonna go under option 1 and we're gonna set a condition and we're gonna do an entity, numeric state, because I wanna do a temperature value for the outside. So if I go here and I type in weather, you can select any of your weather options. We're just gonna do weather home, which I think is the built-in one. Then click attribute and set apparent temperature. So if the apparent temperature is above 50 degrees and say below 75 degrees Fahrenheit, then it will send that notification. So I'm actually gonna go up here using one of the new functions in the newer versions of Home Assistant. And I'm gonna click this and hit cut. Then I'm gonna come down here and go to add action and paste my existing action. Now I can change this to say, please open a window. And then even better, I can click add action. We could do text to speech. So I'm gonna use the cloud service and I'm gonna say my kitchen display. I'm gonna use the exact same message as before. High CO2 level is detected, please open a window. And this is gonna use the cloud service to go ahead and generate that text to speech and send it to my Google Home. Now, one of the cool things here, so I'll get these notifications if it's between 50 degrees and 75 degrees outside, but what if it's not? Well, then I'll click add default actions, add action, and paste back in my original message. So high CO2 levels detected. But another thing that I could do is turn on a fan, or even better, if you have a smart thermostat, you can activate your thermostat's fan function and it will circulate air throughout your house. So I'm gonna click add action and we're gonna say fan, turn on, choose entity, and my downstairs thermostat fan. This is my Nest thermostat, which I've got integrated through the Homebridge integration, which I did a video on previously, which you can find up here. And that fan will basically just turn on. And then if I needed to, I could go in here and set a lower threshold to where it turns that fan off automatically. But for now, you kind of get the concept. If you want to get even more powerful, you could actually go in here and set different types of notifications. So you have one automation that would send alerts for all your different air quality sensors. So say I wanted to add another sensor in here and use the same automation for both. I could click add trigger, entity, numeric state, and we're gonna do our PM 2.5 sensor. So right here, so we can say if that attribute, if the value goes above say 50, then trigger this automation. Now, of course, what it's gonna do is trigger the exact same automation again because I don't have any other conditions. But I can go in here and actually create a separate condition for each of these. So for the same thing, I could go in here and take this condition. I'm gonna take that, I'm gonna cut it, put it on the clipboard, and then I'm gonna create a new condition. And we're gonna use the and then we want to go add condition and we want to paste that back in there. Delete this. And then we want to say add condition. And then we'll do entity numeric state again. And we'll do that the same sensor again, PM 2.5, if it's above 50. So now we'll go in and change this from saying CO2 levels detected. So now I have a condition here where if the temperature is between 50 and 75 degrees outside and the air quality sensor is above 50, so it has triggered here but then met the condition here, so I know it's the PM sensor that triggered it, not the CO2 sensor, then it sends a custom notification for just the PM 2.5 sensor. And then of course, all I would need to do is just duplicate this option, which there's a cool trick now you can do in here. You can click in here and say rename. So we're gonna rename this one to say if below 75F and PM 2.5. So now when you've collapsed this, you can tell what that exact choice is gonna do. So we're gonna click duplicate, just like we did before. And instead of having the air quality sensor above that, we're gonna change this to the CO2 sensor. And of course, change that to 1500. Now we'll just modify these again. So there we go. And now our default action is really not gonna work because it would always come up and say high CO2 levels. So now what happens if it's above 75 degrees and one of these sensors goes off? Well, because I have this set for default actions, it's gonna always run this even if it is a CO2. So in that case, all I have to do is create other conditions that are exclusively the PM 2.5 above its threshold or the CO2 above its threshold, and then delete the default actions. That way it will catch those two additional scenarios because it goes linearly. It goes option 1, true false, option 2, true false, option 3, true false, and all the way down. All right, so now I have the 3 options in here. So if it does fall in the nice degrees outside with either one of these two, they'll activate first. Then if it's the CO2 sensor that activates, it'll go off and send the notification. And if the PM 2.5 one activates without being inside of the nice temperature range, it'll activate number 4. And then by default, it'll turn on the fan. If you have your air purifier directly integrated with Home Assistant, it's super easy. Set that as an action if one of your PM sensors or another sensor goes too high. So if you have a dumb device, like a dehumidifier that doesn't have a direct integration with Home Assistant, then you can do something as simple as setting it up with a smart plug. One thing to note on smart plug, to make sure your device isn't going to exceed that. So something like a dehumidifier, heater, or air conditioner might exceed the rating of the smart plug you plug it into. So you might then need to upgrade to a larger, heavier duty smart plug. So to set up an automation, all we really have to do is come back into Home Assistant, click Create Automation, Add Trigger. Again, we're gonna do Entity and Numeric State. And say if we're doing a dehumidifier, in this case, we're going to go in and we're gonna set a humidity. So I'm gonna find one of my humidity sensors. Let's do the one here behind me. So I've got the meter, which is the one you see back here, its value, and I wanna see, so if it goes above 60%, we wanna turn on the dehumidifier. Obviously, you can set other conditions in here, a time of day, a outside weather condition, what have you, but for this illustration, we'll make it fairly simple. We'll click Add Action, and then we're gonna say Switch. So we're gonna go in and click Switch Turn On, click Choose Entity, and we're gonna select Outdoor Energy Plug, which is this new one I'm testing from Yolink right now. The cool thing about some of these plugs is they also provide power, so you can see exactly if the device is on or off, which we'll look at that here in a second. So that's simple as that, and then I usually like to add a alert here. So we'll say, and again, we've got a simple notification to let us know it's turned on. Now, of course, if your dehumidifier is extremely simple and when you plug it in, it turns on, you're good to go. If you've got something a little more complex where a button needs to be pressed or you need to use a remote to turn it on, then consider using something like a SwitchBot bot that can press that button, or you could use an infrared repeater or emitter device similar to what you find in the Aqara M2 hubs or the SwitchBot hubs. Especially the SwitchBot Hub 2, you can now create those infrared control devices and expose them over Matter, easily adding them into Home Assistant. So again, in this example, I'm assuming it's a dead simple dehumidifier. When it's plugged in, it turns on. Okay, so that's extremely simple. But what happens if we want this to turn off automatically when it drops below a certain humidity threshold? In that case, all we have to do is go up here and actually delete. And instead of using numeric state, we're just gonna use the standard entity and state, since we're gonna react anytime it updates. So this is good because we wanna make sure we're actually checking it more often, so that way we can set an automation. Of course, you could create 2 different automations, one turn on, one turn off, but I like to simplify things. So anytime that numeric state changes, it's gonna trigger this. So of course, we don't want it turning it on all the time. So in that case, we're gonna go back to our friend the choose under building blocks. So under option 1, I'm gonna go to conditions. So here under conditions, I'm gonna click add condition. I'm gonna go to entity, numeric state, and then again, we're gonna look for office humidity. So again, we wanna trigger if this turns on, so above 60. And then under actions, we'll just take the turn on, cut it, and paste it here under actions. Same thing with our notification. Cut that and paste it here under action. So again, this will be high humidity. And then to do the same thing for low humidity, we wanna shut it off. Let's go ahead and click the 3 dots to duplicate it, rename it to low humidity. And then Instead of saying above 60, we're gonna delete that, and we're gonna say below 40. And then from switch on, we're gonna change this to switch off. And then, of course, we wanna change our notification, and there we go. So now that I've got my high humidity and low humidity values set, we can hit save. So now anytime the humidity goes above a certain threshold, it'll turn on that plug, and anytime it drops back below to 40, it'll turn off the plug. Pretty simple and pretty easy to set up. So of course, these are just some basic examples. You can get as crazy as you want with automations, but hopefully this gives you kind of a great concept on how to use these different functions, especially in the new version of Home Assistant, where they've made the automation builder so much better. You can drag and drop, copy paste, it's gotten a ton better. So as we've seen today, integrating smart home sensors into your home can significantly enhance safety, comfort, and overall well-being. Whether you're monitoring air quality, detecting natural gas leaks, or maintaining optimal temperature and humidity levels, these sensors provide invaluable insights and enable intelligent automation. So by harnessing the power of your smart home, you can create a safer, more efficient, and more enjoyable living environment for you and your family. And if you're interested in checking out any of the products that I talked about today, I've got links to everything in the description and the included blog post for today's video. Another big thank you goes out to Aranet for sending over the Aranet 4 sensor. Make sure you go check these out. We've actually been using this sensor quite a bit in our house to check CO2 levels. It's given us a whole new insight into our home's air quality, and like I said, we now have a lot more plants.
Make sure to use our discount code, ThisSmartHouse5, to save 5% on the sensor.
Now, if you're looking for more smart home projects, then check out this playlist I have right over here. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe by clicking our logo right here. Thanks for making it this far, and I'll see you on the next video.